What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. So today we have a very special edition of Heavy Talk. This is the first in-person interview that we are doing. I interview my friend Matt Bickle, who you guys will see in a second. A very interesting story, and we actually ended up talking a lot about, his weight loss journey, but also a lot about the reason I'm here in Kauai right now. As you can tell, I'm not home, and I really hope that you guys are able to listen to the whole thing and hopefully get something out of it, because I think that it's a really interesting story, definitely different than a lot of the people that we've talked to already, and I think that it can be really impactful for some of you guys. So without further ado, let's play the intro. What's up, you guys? Welcome to the video. I'm here with my friend Matt Bickle, and we are going to do this is the first ever Heavy Talk that we're doing live.
Oh, cool.
All the other ones, live with the person. The other ones have been Skype interviews.
Yeah.
So this is exciting for me.
Yeah, man.
So Matt is someone that I've met here in Kauai. We've kind of known of each other for a little bit, but we've never met. And so we saw each other at the gym. We started talking, and I was like, dude, I need to get you on the show. So super stoked to have you, bro.
Man, so happy to be here, dude.
Matt, close to the mouth.
It's always cool to meet someone with such a similar story yet such a different background, and to see how we navigated to where we are today and got to meet in such a great place because of it. So.
I know. It's crazy, just hearing, again, we have similar stories, but I think that we got to maybe our heaviest point completely different ways.
Yeah.
So, just saying that, let's kind of hear your story. What was your heaviest weight, and how did you kind of get to that point?
Yeah. So, grew up in Missouri and grew up pretty poor and lived a tough life as far as just didn't have a lot going for me. Was a poor kid that was always gaining attention through outward actions because I didn't have much else to offer. I felt like in my heart, and never really got accepted for that, and always had food there backing me up. And so growing up, always used food as a crutch, and got myself to a pretty heavy weight, but was able to hide it with football. I played football most of my life, and so being a bigger guy, I had the excuse of an offensive lineman, and being a big, tall guy, I started to try to use that to my advantage, lifted a bunch of weights, sat around 350, 360 all through college, but was an earth mover, played football at Baylor University, and it was something that I was rewarded for being so big, so it didn't bother me, and was definitely warned by everyone, hey man, this is going to slip really fast when you stop doing this, and the way you eat and the way you train.
So they would say stuff about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
And I'd been fighting my weight my whole life. Overweight little kid, overweight high schooler, and football and offensive line was the first thing where it was you were loved for being fat, and so everyone was celebrated for it, and we had a group of people that we felt secure with, and that worked for a long time, and got done playing football, and lo and behold, in 10 years, I put on 100 pounds, and I was already 360 pounds. So,
yeah.
I averaged it about a pound a month, and it was something that had friends go through a lot of weight loss stuff and talked about the psychology of food and how many cheat meals you eat. And this was eating 21 cheat meals, if not 28 cheat meals a week. 3 to 4 big, huge meals, eating competitively, worrying about where my next bite of food was coming from after I took my last. It was psychologically taking over me, and I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it was a problem. I was just trying to be the best at living a good life, and eating was kind of what got me there. It's what my drug is. So it's been something that I've always battled, and didn't really realize it was happening. And then at about 450 pounds, finally had my own aha moment. I had some friends one friend who'd gotten gastric bypass surgery, another friend who had just started losing a bunch of weight, and I was kind of losing my fraternity of big boys, and all of a sudden felt alone on an island, and it was also at the peak of my size and the peak of my unhealthiness, and stayed active all the way up to 450 pounds and would hike 14,000 foot mountains, would go skiing.
Wow.
My blood pressure would pound so hard in my head that I felt like I was going to pass out. I never once went to a doctor. I never had a health issue. And I was a sprained ankle away from letting it all go downhill. You know as I do, when you're that big, you blow out your knee and you're done.
It's it's almost a death sentence. It can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You end up just becoming, especially for you, how active you still were.
Yeah.
Becoming sedentary, and you probably wouldn't have changed your eating habits.
Yep.
It would have just, you probably would have went from a pound a month to 10 or 20 pounds a month, just because it's scary.
Yeah, and eating thousands of calories, as you know. But got to a point where had an aha moment. It was a terrible aha moment. Everyone's always like, what was it that changed? And mine is a funny one. I was eating Qdoba. My wife had brought me home Qdoba, and my normal Qdoba meal was like a steak burrito with queso and guacamole, chips and guacamole and queso, and a steak quesadilla or something like that. And,
Always
and
something on the side.
Soda. Yeah,
Yep.
soda. And so I would, it was eating all that, and I had been at the peak of my decadence of bad eating, like eating for decadence, and like trying to competitively eat in my head, not knowing that's what I was doing, but just wanting to be live a great life. And so I realized at that moment, I was like, man, nothing sounds good. Pizza doesn't sound good. Donuts don't sound good. And I was like, maybe I should try vegetables. And got on Whole Foods website. It's the only thing I knew that was healthy then. And obviously there's plenty of sugar at Whole Foods, but it was a direction, and they had an Eat Right, Now category link on the top of their website. Clicked on it. It showed me the ANDI scale, which is the aggregate nutritional density index scale. It scales food 1 through 1,000, 1 being a Coca-Cola, 1,000 being like bok choy or collard greens. I started, I had no clue, as I'm sure you didn't either. I just was absolutely clueless what was healthy and what wasn't. So I started eating off of that scale because I could at least take these things that were high in those numbers and ate a lot of them. Went from 450 down to 325 by simply chopping vegetables and hiking the trail with my dogs every day, just walking, and got competitive with the hiking of the trail. Would time myself, would try and take time off it. It was like about 3.5 miles. Couldn't run it ever. There was a time where I got to 432 pounds, and I thought it's the first time I'd ever seen a movement downward in a scale in my whole life. It had always gone up, and I realized then that I had a major breakthrough. And so I would, we don't cuss on this show, but I would just say F you 432 over and over in my head every single step. And I didn't weigh myself for like 6 months because I was just determined to see a lower number, and got on it and was like 370 or something like that, and was like, oh my gosh, I'm almost back to like my fighting weight, and got down to 325. Thought I'd conquered all my demons, thought I was rocking and rolling and figured it all out. And then actually started to kind of get back into my old habits, and which obviously a lot of big guys do. Got back up to 375, and this was in 2015. 2010 is when I started trying to lose weight. 2015 is when I started gaining weight again and got up to 375. Saw Froning win his last games on TV. It was like, I got to do that. That's how I'll get in shape. Took me a year to get the nerve up to go to a CrossFit gym, and walked in the first day, and they were doing burpees in a free class workout, and I almost ran. I was like, seeing burpees
I don't want to do this
more
anymore.
than 2. I was like, I can't get on and off the ground that fast, and certainly not more than 1 or 2 times. And after going through a couple private training sessions, my coach was like, hey man, you're athletic enough, just jump in. An old football player was still in me. Started moving my body and have all my measurements and body weight and photos and before and afters, and I'll share it all with you so you can show it to everyone else. But from the day I started, which was January of 2016, or basically November of 2015, I tracked everything, all my body, with my blood pressure, my blood tests, and I have some really cool information on how I went from 375 to I've gotten down to 275. I'm sitting at 285 right now, 290, and it's just a more comfortable weight for me. If I was training for something or wanted to really get vain with myself and try and see as many muscles sticking out as I can get down and be really strict with my food. And it happens seasonally. I'll do it probably 3 months out of the year, just when I'm tired of being fluffy and want to just make it go extra hard. But my love for training is what really drives me, and my why was health is wealth and fitness is freedom, and it still is. But I also now just genuinely, truly love the rigors and the pain that come along with training and being in this lifestyle. And it's taken a long time to get to that point. And it sounds crazy when you tell people that are just starting their journey, but it's something that people just, one of my favorite quotes is, people don't realize how good feeling good really feels. And when you start feeling good, it's just as addictive as the pattern of feeling bad. And it's something that's led me to some amazing things in my life, because I just did CrossFit out of the love of fitness with no intention of anything. I knew anything I've ever done, I've tried to be great at, but it's like, man, I'm 375 pounds and I'm joining this sport that physically and age-wise, I'm 39 right now, I would never be able to go to the games. And if I could go as a master's, that's it was kind of in the back of my head for a while, but as I started to realize like my body type and my strengths, like, you know, I'm stronger than any masters my age for my maxes, but I can't do gymnastics at all. Like I you know, I'll kill myself.
Yeah.
And so the reality came to me that's not what my life in CrossFit was, but that I was still going to train as hard as I could and see where it took me. And where it's taken me is to some really, really crazy places, like where we're sitting right now in Kauai. And it's been from nothing more than going to gyms and dropping in and being enthusiastic about fitness and meeting, connecting with people and sharing my story. And people always welcomed me in CrossFit with open arms. And like 3 years ago, I came out to Kauai, where we are now, where we met, and we dropped into a class, and this coach Juan was the coach, and we did max unbroken pull-ups, which I'd never tried before in my life. Had only did a pull-up like 2 years ago for the first time in my life. Still am not good at them at all, like horrible. You probably saw me today, switched to push-ups. And so did 10, and it was like a huge overcoming moment for me, and I felt really good, and I felt the energy here, and I wanted to come back. And the next day I came back, and another guy named Eric, who's one of my dearest friends and lives in Denver now, he was coaching that day, and we were doing a memorial workout for a friend of his who had passed away, and it was a partner workout, and we celebrated this woman's life who I've still never met. Her name is Jamie Silva. I guess she worked for CrossFit HQ, and she passed away of cancer as a mother and a wife, and just a horrible story. And we did a workout for her, and I'd never met her, and he just instilled so much passion in me that next workout about how much, you know, how grateful we should be for our lives and our legs and our lungs and all these things that we have. And so he and I had another just explosion moment of energy, and it made me start to feel the energy here in Kauai and wanting to come back. And they started telling me about this run that they were having every year, and if you know me, you know I'm not a runner. You know? It's just something that I'm like, yeah. And I had met him 3 years ago, but just after the run. So basically knew him for 11 months, and they told me about this run. But in the meanwhile, they were taking me to these kids' classes and letting me volunteer to coach and telling me about the epidemic and the problems that were going on here on the island and all the things that you know the people here are suffering from, because all you see is like the ocean and the big waves and the cool hanging out here, but there's actually a lot of suffering, and these poor kids are just so impoverished. And you know, to live in a place where everyone in the world competes to live because it's such a beautiful place, it leaves the people that are here stuck here and without a lot of options. And I became very attracted to the energy here that people were just relentlessly pouring into their community. And it was something that I'd never participated in my life, and felt guilty, honestly, going home. Was like, man, what more can I do? Because these guys are just like selflessly dumping themselves into these people, and have, you know, gotten me to be much more active in my community at home, but also gotten me to put a microscope under what they're doing here in Kauai, which is now turned into, from a run, into the Keala Foundation. And this is your first run, and my third, I'm sorry. And, you know, 3 years ago, I could have never have imagined that it was going to change and impact my life, this run. And I ran it the last 3 years, and it's, you know, it's the most insignificant part of a week that is the most life-changing thing I've ever been a part of. And this is where I would like be stoked to turn it over to you and hear your experience being a first-time participant here, and just explaining to me like how this went through your eyes, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I have so much that I definitely want to say about what you were talking about. Like, I mean, I can relate so much to the feeling like the big guy persona is who you are, you know? Like, I had shirts that said "Born to be Big" on it. Yeah. You know, and it truly is scary for a lot of people. Like, I get messages every day of people like, I want to lose weight, but like I'm afraid because I am the funny fat guy, or I am a big guy, and that's like my thing, you know? And it can be scary, but I mean, I always encourage people, like, I'm telling you, it's like you were saying, it's so worth it to lose the weight to feel good, you know? And like, that's my message to people, is always like, the reason I'm so passionate about what I do and passionate about how I truly do believe that losing weight can be so beneficial for so many people. You know, it can get to a point where it's unhealthy, and you can absolutely get way too focused on it, and that's definitely true. Or you can do something that's too dramatic and you end up gaining the weight back. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very, that happens to a lot of people, but it's not, it doesn't have to be the only way, right? Like, I really think that there's a way to find something that's sustainable for you. It's very clear that it's the love of fitness and the love of moving and being able to do things that keep you from not wanting to go back to that, you know, that heavy weight. And then when it comes to, you know, being here in Kauai, doing what we're doing, it's like, I know that the people that are probably watching the video haven't, like, if you're not following me on Instagram or you haven't listened to the podcast, you might not know exactly what we're talking about. But the Keala Foundation, the reason that we're here is they take kids after school and they bring them to the gym, they work them out, they give them a healthy meal, and they basically instill really good morals into the kids, because a lot of the kids here, sadly, on the island are without parents, or their parents are into drugs, into alcohol, and it's hard for the foundation to explain that to people, because, again, it's literally, like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been to.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's beautiful on the surface, but look under the rug, right? And it's dirty, and there's a lot of issues. So I didn't know much about the run. I knew that there was a run that raised money for kids. Like, that's kind of what I knew before I got here. But being here, I mean, I've been here for about a week. I was actually supposed to be gone yesterday, but we extended our stay. It's really shown me just, like, it's an incredible foundation. And I'm so thankful to be here. And, like, the fact that we were kind of talking before we started the video of, like, just being able to actually do the run. You know, like, I was thinking when we were doing it, like, this run, one, it's not really a run. It's like a crazy hike.
Yeah.
It's not even, it's supposed to be a 10K. It was actually 12.7 Ks this year. But it was incredible. And a lot of the kids were running the run without shoes. And, like, I was asking why. It's because they don't have them. They don't have shoes.
Yeah.
And, I mean, a lot of them are just more comfortable without shoes, too, because they get used to walking around barefoot. But that's like what people are dealing with here.
Yeah, man.
And so it's been an incredible just week that I've been able, and I'm so thankful for the fact that my journey and, like, being my heaviest weight and losing the weight and doing what I do now, filming these videos, gave me the opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I truly do think that things, as cheesy as it sounds, but, like, things happen for a reason, and there's a reason that I've been through everything that I've been through. And I think it's for literally what we're doing right now is to share that with other people.
Absolutely.
And because I think one of the hardest things is when you are obese and you truly feel like you're stuck. Like you were saying, seeing the weight go down for the first time, like you were blown away. I was the same way. Like I truly thought that I was incapable of losing weight. Yeah. Like I had tried so many times, and now looking back, I realized I tried way too hard. Mm-hmm. As silly as that sounds, it was like I was like, okay, eat whatever you want, and then, okay, I need to lose weight. I'm going to cut out everything that I enjoy.
Myself. Yeah.
And so, like, I would be able to do that for a few days, and then I'd fall off the wagon. So it's incredible. And, I mean, I think that your story is really interesting because it was like in your mind, you probably were like, I'm big for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that you, like, decided that you no longer, so was it like when you decided to, like, lose the weight, was it just because you didn't feel good? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
as silly as it sounds, it was like a dirty closet or garage that I always knew I was going to get to. I kept a bunch of clothes that, like, were so far from fitting me because I was like, oh, I'll fit in those clothes again someday. Like, I'm going to take care of this. Like, I'm a very extreme person, and so in my head I knew when I made up my mind that I was going to go head over heels, and I almost, like, didn't want the party to end, and that's why I was letting it slip. And to say that out loud is, like, it's so, like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why didn't I just get it started earlier? And now, obviously, being older and being so far into this journey, I'm like, man, if I could have done it 2 years before that, 4 years before that, I'd give anything. Mm-hmm. Because I touched on it earlier, but I was talking and a lot was coming out. But to your point about running the run and the miraculous miracle of us even being able to go out and run this run is that fitness is freedom. And, like, the things that I said no to when I was my unhealthiest because I was afraid it was going to be too hard. I was afraid I was going to sweat through my clothes, which I still sweat through my clothes.
Yeah, same.
You know, I was afraid I was going to be breathing too heavy and not be able to have a conversation. I lived in Colorado for 10 years before I ever did a hike. Mm-hmm. You know, I was just horrified of it. It was my biggest arch nemesis was walking up a hill and feeling my heart rate go up and feeling self-conscious about it. And the freedom that we've gained in our lives is something that, if nothing else, would motivate you or, you know, make you angry enough to want to start that journey. Like, think of the amount of freedom you're giving up, and you're basically have become a prisoner to, you know, the things that are the easy comforts of life that you don't have to move around much for. And and hard work is absolutely required to achieve this freedom. But when done the right way and when done your way, it can be a lot of fun and a whole lot easier than any other, than some regimen you might have stuck in your head that it's going to be like, because it's not like that.
And like you were saying, like you found like with fitness now, it's just like you enjoy it. And I think that the reason, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know for me, the reason maybe I didn't start was because I felt like it was going to be so much work and always be so much work.
Yeah.
And I think that you definitely, at the start, it is a lot of work. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy and, it's like rainbows and butterflies from the start. But now, it doesn't feel like a lot of work. It's just, this is what I enjoy doing now. Like, we went to the gym together this morning, and it wasn't like, I was like, oh, man, I have to get up and go to the gym. It was like, cool, we're going to the gym. Like, that's what I do now.
Yeah.
And we all did, we did a very long workout today. It was pretty tough, but it was like nice to get it out of the way in the morning. And now we might be going on a hike after this, just you end up for me, at least there was this like sweet spot where it ended up switching from a necessary evil almost, right? To being like, this is what I enjoy. That's why I always encourage people to find what you enjoy if you can, right? Absolutely. Like I don't tell people you have to go to the gym because you don't. Like you said you lost most of your weight before even going into the gym.
Yeah.
That's so normal for a lot of people, especially if you have like 100-something pounds to lose or more. You don't need fix your diet and then find something you enjoy. If that's walking, that's fine. That's all it needs to be. If
Golf,
that's biking,
tennis.
Exactly. Like it doesn't have to be going to the gym 6 days a week. And if that sounds like the worst thing in the world to you, maybe that is, and that's not something you need to do. But hey, maybe once you start walking, you'll be like, wait, I kind of want to check out the gym because I feel like I can get something out of it. Yeah. And that's up to you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
One thing I would say also to your point is that there is a pendulum swing that I think about that I think is good for people to understand. And it's that, yes, when you start the work, it's absolutely much, much harder. But that's also when you get the most dramatic results.
It's so true.
And like, as you stop getting these, I was losing 30 pounds a month when I first started. And I wasn't going crazy. I was just not training to be that big anymore. Instead, I was training to not be that big. And when you're that big, you're almost in training for being that big. Your meals, everything is focused around supporting how much you need to be that out of shape, and you don't realize that that's what you're doing, but that's absolutely what you're doing. And as it gets easier, you stop losing so much weight, unfortunately, but that's the pendulum. And so like now I haven't lost weight in probably 4 or 5 years, but I've changed, body size immensely. And
you haven't gained a significant amount of weight either, though,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So I just want to encourage people like, hey, the hardest time is also the most dramatic results. You can start walking a mile a day and lose like 30 pounds. Stop drinking soda. I always tell people,
huge one.
Or even just calories. I always say just don't drink calories. Yep. Like if you want to lose a ton of weight, first thing you can do is just cut out calories, and then that's a pretty easy way to it's not a total shock to yourself. You can still eat all the candy you want. It's not, a good thing to eat candy, but it's a great way to start your process. And water is, it's an amazing thing. So
I love that. That's what I always say. Like when it's obviously if you have 200 or more pounds to lose, that's a lot of weight and that's kind of daunting. But I'm telling you at the start, all you have to do is make such simple changes and you'll see these crazy results. And results, I think, can help you push forward too, right?
Fuel.
So like that's why I love that pendulum analogy. Like, yeah, it's hard here, but it's also you're going to get a lot of results. But then once you get down here, it's going to be a little bit harder, but the results are going to come slower, but it's not going to be as difficult physically to get into the gym and to do these
100%.
These workouts. So I want 100% agree with that.
Awesome. Man.
And I think that your story, again, it's just, I hope that there's people out there that can kind of relate to that because, you were someone that, you gained weight your whole life, but again, you were still athletic. And like for me, I was the person that gained weight and lost everything. I was 360 and I was barely mobile, right? Like it was getting to a point where I couldn't even stand for a significant amount of time, and it just became normal though. Like you were saying, you were gaining a pound a month. Like for me, it was just normal to go up a shirt size every year, like every school year. You know what I mean? Like, I'm wearing a large, I'll wear an extra large next year. And then like my pant size, the same thing. It would just slowly get bigger and bigger. And I think that it's like like you said, when you really don't know how good it is to feel good, like I'm telling you, it's like when you're morbidly obese, you miss out on so much stuff. You might not even be thinking that you're missing out, but you subconsciously don't do things because you're afraid your size might impede you. And, you know, it's not like just society not making big enough chairs for people or whatever. I think that it's like literally like we're going to go on this hike and I probably would have been like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or even literally even coming here. Being in Kauai, I probably would have been like, nah, that's outside all the time. I'm not going to take my shirt off. I'm not going to be on the beach. It's sandy. And it just, I guarantee I would have said no.
Yeah.
So it's like you start to make these excuses and start to not do these things, and you don't even realize that you're missing out on all this life.
Yeah.
And like that's my biggest thing is I want people to understand that like weight loss can, especially massive weight loss, can improve the quality of your life so immensely. Not just like your blood pressure, like or anything like that. Is like what are you able to do?
The amount of fun you can pack into a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's so worth it. And it's like that's why I always want people to see that. Like it's so worth the suffering and the struggling, you know, and that's like it's almost like a dirty word now, like, oh, it shouldn't be hard, it should be easy. But I mean, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like it's okay for you to feel like it's okay to mess up. It's okay to feel like you're not doing the right thing. It's okay to feel like, you know, to have that trial and error. I think that's very important for anyone that's gonna lose weight and keep it off is like figure it out for yourself at some capacity, you know? Figure out what works for you. Some people like to do keto. Some people like to do this. Like find out what works for you. And it's so worth it in the end. Yeah. Like I can't even express. But just to kind of wrap up the video, I mean, that story was incredible. I do want to talk a little bit more about the foundation just because I think that it's awesome and I would love to, you know, for people to know more about it. So like, how did you, when you like first started to kind of get into finding out about the foundation, like what was that kind of like for you?
So I've been here since the inception of the foundation, and before it was ever a foundation, Aaron Hoff owned CrossFit Poipu with his friend Jamie, and they were doing the run, and it was the run would raise enough money that they could buy a couple vans, which was what they transport the kids around the island with, because the island is huge when it comes to how slow the speed limits are and how country the roads are. The kids are pretty spread out all over the place here, especially the locals. None of those guys are down here by the beach. They're all up and all around the island. So they were just raising money to buy a couple vans and to pay for like a bag of chips and actually it wasn't chips. They do like watermelon and make sandwiches or something like that. And that was like the extent of how big it was then. And the run started gathering the attention of CrossFit and CrossFitters, and also Greg Glassman bought a home over here in Kauai, and he brought his kids to the kids program. And if you've ever been to the kids program, which you have now, it's truly magical. Rory Zambar is the head coach of the kids, and she's a retired games athlete, and she's got these kids moving better than, I mean, every single kid in Anahola front squatted better than I can front squat the other day, at least prettier, you know, like I'm constantly blown away by how these kids move so well. And it's a basis that Glassman saw and was like, man, this is really cool. Like this is special. And then just sat around and listened to Aaron. And if you can get Aaron to tell you the story, then your heart is going to be compelled to help out. And so Greg, being an amazing, just awesome guy for the sport and for this island, helped them start CrossFit Keikaha and CrossFit Anahola, which are two gyms that are in places like, it'd be like, you know, if I'm from St. Louis, and it'd be like if they started a gym in East St. Louis.
Yeah, it's like the rough part of the neighborhood.
Exactly.
For sure.
And there's nothing, I mean, there's not even a grocery store in either town. There's just a gas station where these kids go to. Most people buy all their stuff from a gas station, and most of these kids are completely unsupervised. And so in these two places, Greg basically affiliated and got these gyms up and started, got a bunch of equipment for them. And at this point, a lot of people in CrossFit had started to kind of want to help out here, because you come out here and you have such a magical experience, but you also get so exposed to what is going on. And as soon as you work with the kids in the program, you're just like, your heart wants to explode and everyone wants to help. And so over the last 3 years, a lot of like big name athletes have come out. Matt Frazier was out last year, you know, Froning's been out, like a lot of these guys that just people pay attention to. It's what honestly got me to want to come to the run in the first place. Even though these guys are my friends, I was like, man, how cool is this that all these amazing athletes are going to be out here and put them out of their element running in these trails in the muddy Kauai. And so a lot of as it grew, the sponsorships grew, the attention grew, and it became such a big thing that they could no longer just make it a fundraiser. They had to start a foundation and actually hire a board of directors and become actual business people. And it's so beautiful because these are my beautiful island family that it's not their strong point. And Rory, it is her strong point, and Sarah, who they've now brought on over from Barbells for Boobs. These are some really, really smart business people that are helping drive this thing to be actually sustainable and also repeatable. And I think that's what's most important is I don't think they realize their reach, that if you can do it here in this remote place where the resources are limited and the poverty is so overwhelming, then it's very possible to do across the country where there is much more resources and much more availability for funds and people to participate, and even just people. There's so many more people on mainland. So I as they've started the foundation, it's funny to see my friends all grown up and especially in business, because I knew that there was never going to be a problem in training these kids and making their futures better. But I always wondered how are they going to evolve this, and how can we get this to where it can happen in Denver, it can happen in San Diego, because it needs to just as bad as it needs to happen here. And so I'm just watching these guys grow, the attention that's coming over here. I think that we're to a point now where, in the next few years, we'll start to see that roll out around the country and make such a huge difference for us all.
Yeah, I think that'll be really cool. Seeing it at different towns, different cities, different states, maybe even different countries. I think that could be really cool. Well, I do want to say, if you're watching this, consider donating if you want to the Keala Foundation. Literally every cent that gets donated goes straight to the kids. I've seen it, and the kids there's so many more kids that could be reached if the funds were there, you know? So I'll put a link down in the description. It'll be the only link that's on the video. And consider donating. But I just want to say thanks for coming on and sharing your story, man.
Appreciate it.
All right, cool. See you guys later.
See ya.
Obey the warning signs, and when there are flashing lights or wigwags, don't attempt to cross until they come to a complete stop.